Let's talk about misogynism and abortion law. Let's talk about oppression. Let's talk about how I was oppressed by the Supreme Court back in 1973 when a group of men decided that it was a constitutional right that a child's life would be ended by abortion. That was my death sentence. Let's talk about how I was oppressed when my birth mother was forced to have a saline infusion abortion. Let's talk about how I was oppressed when I soaked in this toxic salt solution for 5 days. And yes, you can read my medical records. They're all over the place. I'm not afraid to share it. Let's talk about how I was oppressed by that toxic salt solution as I soaked in it and should have been poisoned and scalded to death. Let's talk about how I was oppressed when I was delivered on the 5th day of the abortion procedure, believing that I would be delivered dead as a successful abortion. Let's talk about how I was oppressed when I was initially laid aside, as my parents were told, and how there were arguments about whether I would be provided medical care. Sounds a little bit like Governor Northam all these years later, right? All of these things happened in my life. By the grace of God, I now know that there was a nurse who was unwilling to leave me there gasping for breath to die. But that's what oppression looks like. It looks like a child fighting for their life in the womb, a child being left to die, arguments being made about their life. That's what oppression looks like. And at the hands of an abortionist who was a man who decided, right in his capacity, that he would end my life. That's what oppression and misogynism looks like. And so if we're going to have this discussion in our country right now about oppression and all of these men who are misogynistic, let's talk about the Supreme Court who made that decision, right? Let's talk about the abortionist who was a male who tried to end my life. Let's talk about women like me who survive abortions and go on to live our lives. Let's talk about our rights. Let's talk about our children's rights, right? I'm a mother of two girls. They never would have lived if that abortion would have succeeded in ending my life. Let's have an honest to goodness discussion about this. Not just post things on the internet, right? Because we're all good at that. I mean, I do it too, right? We post information, we post comments. But if we're going to post the comments, then let's follow up with some experiences. So I'm offering up my experience right now to anybody who wants to be willing to talk to me about it, either publicly or privately. Ask me questions. All of these things are happening in the world around us. And even though I know it's stressful for some people right now, I think it's an important time for all of us to acknowledge that there is a breadth of experience that comes to the table. And those experiences include those of survivors like me.